Flor Silvestre watched a judge rip her children away from her and hand them to the man who had hit her. That was the real origin of the Aguilar dynasty, an origin so dark, so painful, and so buried in silence that it was never told in full until today. An 18-year-old woman gives birth in Argentina. Her husband loses everything at the gambling tables. 5 years later, that same woman is alone, hiding from photographers in Mexico City. What she doesn't know is what's waiting for her. 4 more children, 2 devastating divorces, a judge who will take her own kids from her, and the birth of the most powerful musical dynasty in Mexico. Here you'll discover the truth about the firstborn almost nobody knows. The divorce where she lost 2 children for 20 years. The violence accusations that appeared in Texas newspapers. And how Antonio Aguilar saved a broken family. You'll see court documents that are barely ever mentioned, testimonies hidden for decades, and the exact price 5 siblings paid for carrying legendary last names. February 27, 1948. 3:47 a.m., Santa Fe, Argentina. Guillermina Jimenez Chaboya gives birth to her first daughter in a South American hospital. She has just turned 18. The baby is named Dalia Inés Nieto Jimenez. She weighs 3.2 kilograms. The father is Andrés Nieto Villafranco, an artistic representative the official story rarely talks about. But he left a mark, he left a daughter, and he left scars Flor would carry in silence. Guillermina is already Flor Silvestre on stage. She already sings rancheras. At 16, she had her first hit. At 17, she won a contest. At 18, she's a mother. But tonight, she's not singing. She's just holding her baby and wondering how she's supposed to do it all. Be a mother. Be a wife. Be the star Mexico is expecting. There's no answer. Just the cry of a newborn. And a husband at the hotel casino, losing what she earned yesterday. Andrés Nieto has 2 obvious problems. First, an explosive temper that detonates without warning. Second, compulsive gambling. He bets Flor's money, the gifts she receives, even the money meant to feed Dalia. There's a third problem nobody mentions. When Andrés loses a lot, when rage consumes him, his hands turn into fists. Flor never filed a report, but years later in private conversations with her children, she would admit, "My first marriage taught me that love can't cure everything. Sometimes the only thing you can do is run before it destroys you." The fights are constant for 5 years. In 1953, when Dalia turns 5, Flor signs the divorce papers. She's 23. 1 daughter, a dead marriage, and a career that doesn't forgive pauses. The divorce is fast. Andrés doesn't fight for custody. He disappears like smoke. He will never have contact with Dalia again. Years later, he will die without rebuilding that relationship. Dalia grows up watching her mother from a distance between curtains, stages, dressing rooms where Flor transforms every night. The girl learns early. The Jimenez name comes with a cost. Being Flor Silvestre's daughter means your mother belongs to everyone before she belongs to you. Dalia watches, absorbs. Years later, she'll say, "With so much music in the house, I never felt like doing anything else." But there's something she doesn't say. She became a singer because singing was the only language where her mother always had time to speak to her. And here's the first little candy you need to remember. There is a letter from Flor Dalia written in 1962. In that letter, Flor confesses something about her first marriage, something only Dalia knew for decades. That letter became public in 2015. We'll come back to it. Mexico City. Flor sings Cielo Rojo for the first time. In the audience, there's a man hypnotized. His name is Francisco Rubiales Calvo. Paco Malgesto, he's 36, a famous broadcaster, a pioneer of Mexican television. Paco is charismatic in that dangerous way. He knows exactly what to say, how to make a woman feel unique. He's also a compulsive womanizer. All of Mexico knows it. His affairs are national gossip. Flor knows his reputation, but when Paco invites her to dinner, she says yes. Maybe because she's just escaped a toxic marriage, and Paco seems different, successful, confident, no gambling problems. Or maybe because she's tired of being strong alone. They marry in 1953. The wedding is the event of the year. Flor glowing in a white dress. Paco with that smile that sells everything. Dalia in the photos, small, holding her mother's hand like she's afraid Flor could vanish. April 16, 1954. Marcela Rubiales Jimenez is born blonde like her father, with light eyes. Flor now has two daughters from two different marriages. She's building a fragmented family without realizing it. 1950 to 1958, the years Flor builds her empire. She signs with Columbia Records, releases Llorar Amargo, records with Mariachi Vargas. In 1957, she records Cielo Rojo and signs exclusivity with Discos Musart. While her career explodes, her personal life becomes a minefield. Paco doesn't change. The infidelities continue. Flor confronts him. Paco promises he'll change. He doesn't. The cycle repeats until Flor no longer knows if she's married to a man or to a lie. The rumors start in 1957. Someone saw Paco too close to La Prieta Linda, Flor's sister. The stories grow. Flor hears them, but she can't believe them. Her husband with her own sister. A betrayal too deep to process. Until the night Flor comes home early from a performance. January 1958. She enters the house, hears voices in the living room, recognizes both voices, walks in, and finds them. Paco and La Prieta kissing on her couch, the same couch where he plays with their daughters. Flor doesn't scream. She doesn't cry. She simply says, "Get out of my house, both of you, now." Years later, La Prieta will deny everything on Ventaneando. She'll say she was taking care of the kids, that's why she was always there. But Flor never denies the rumors. Her silence is the answer. Days later, Flor discovers something else. She's pregnant. 4 months. Another child by Paco Malgesto. The timing couldn't be worse. Francisco Rubiales Jimenez is born in the middle of a hurricane. He's the son Paco always wanted. He's born with his father's name. Francisco never asked to be the child of that war. But he will be. Remember this name. Francisco Rubiales will become the invisible son, the translator who works on The Simpsons. The one who rejects the spotlight. We'll come back to him. March 1958. Flor files for divorce. Lawyers advise her not to mention the incident with her sister. Impossible to prove. But there's something they can prove. Less than a month later, Flor can't attend the hearing. Her lawyer submits a medical certificate from the Hospital Español. The document details injuries, bruises on the left arm consistent with violent gripping, a contusion on the right cheek, swelling in the left wrist. The certificate concludes, injuries consistent with recent physical assault. That document exists. It's filed in the 7th Family Court. Nobody in Mexico publishes it. Paco is too powerful. But one newspaper does publish it. The Brownsville Herald, Texas. July 3, 1958 edition, page 7. The article says, word for word, that the lawsuit was accompanied by a medical certificate attesting to the injuries Flor alleged were caused by Paco Malgesto. Decades later, Flor will remember that divorce like this. Very unpleasant. I wouldn't like to go through it again because it was very sad. Back then, there was a very yellow journalist who started the comments. Notice what she doesn't say. She doesn't mention the violence. She doesn't mention her sister. Just unpleasant. But the worst comes next. November 12, 1958. The 7th Family Court judge issues the ruling. The divorce is granted, but full parental authority over Marcela and Francisco is awarded to Paco Malgesto. The official justification, Paco has better financial resources and greater job stability. Flor travels constantly and cannot offer a stable home. The sentence includes a devastating clause. Flor cannot see her children without Paco supervising. In practice, Paco forbids her from seeing them. Flor Silvestre, the star who fills theaters, is now legally separated from 2 of her 3 children. Marcela is 4 years old. Francisco is only months old. Neither will understand for years what happened. They'll only know that mom is gone. Paco will tell them again and again, "Your mother abandoned us. She chose her career over you." It's the cruelest lie. Marcela and Francisco will believe it for years. Here's the second little candy. There's a diary Marcela Rubiales wrote during those years. She started it when she was 8 in 1962. It documents every secret encounter with her mother. That diary was partially made public in 2020. An entry dated August 12, 1964 says, "Today I saw Mom. She's thinner. I asked her why she doesn't come home. She started crying. I told her not to cry. Dad says she left us, but I know that's not true. Mom hugged me so hard it hurt, but I didn't ask her to let go. Marcella was 10 years old. We'll come back to that diary. For years, Flor sees her children in hiding meetings coordinated with military precision. Marcella will remember, Mom would come to the school. She would stay on the corner with dark glasses and a scarf just to watch me come out. Sometimes she could give me a quick hug before the teacher saw her. Other times, she just watched from far away. That's the definition of hell, seeing your mother and not being allowed to hug her. And while Flor fights in court and searches for her children like a fugitive, there's a man watching everything. A man who has been waiting for his moment, Antonio Aguilar. Antonio and Flor met in 1950. He sang boleros on her radio program. They shared the screen in Primero Soy Mexicano in 1950. The chemistry was there, sleeping, waiting. Antonio was married to Otilia Larrañaga Villarreal, but that marriage was a ghost. Flor would confirm years later. He almost never lived with his wife. He married out of spite. One day we fought, but he didn't live with her. Antonio married to forget Flor. It didn't work. Antonio divorces in February, exactly 5 months later. On October 29, 1959, Antonio and Flor marry civilly. Flor is 29, with 3 children from 2 previous marriages, a heart broken by the courts, and a fragile hope that this love will be different. Antonio is 40. He has waited patiently, and now he will do something that will define him for the rest of his life. He won't just marry Flor. He'll marry her entire history, her wounds, her children. He will take them as his own, in a way that doesn't need legal papers. October 9, 1960, José Jesus Antonio Aguilar Jiménez is born in Villanueva, Zacatecas. 6:23 a.m. Antonio Aguilar Jr. From the first second, he carries a surname that weighs tons. The baby has his father's face in an almost unsettling way. As he grows, the resemblance becomes stronger. At 12, when he debuts in La Yegua Colorada in 1972, the audience freezes. It's like watching a young Antonio Aguilar. Too similar. Antonio Jr. grows up without a normal childhood. At 8, he already knows how to behave in front of crowds. At 10, he understands tour logistics. At 12, he's performing. He doesn't have a childhood. He has a technicolor childhood applause and horses. But it's not normal. When he turns 15, he asks his father, "Can I study something that isn't music?" Don Antonio looks straight at him. "You're my son. You're Antonio Aguilar. The world expects you to be like me. Do you really want to disappoint them?" Antonio Jr. never forgets that conversation. It wasn't a direct order. It was worse. Expectation disguised as a question. He keeps going. He acts in movies. In 1994, at 34, he releases Todo Mi Vida, his first album. It's produced by his younger brother Pepe, who at 26 is already a successful producer. The single Por Ti No Voy a Llorar reaches number 20 on Billboard. It's a hit, but the critics say he sings just like his father, which is good and bad. If you close your eyes, you could swear it's Don Antonio. Every review is a reminder. You're only good because you look and sound like your father. Your value is tied to whether you can replicate him. Antonio Jr. releases more albums in the 90s. Then after The Bitterness of Love in 1999, he disappears. 6 years without music. The truth is simple and sad. He was exhausted from being a photocopy. He returns in 2004 with Caballo Viejo, but the momentum is gone. Then he disappears again 12 years until 2016. By then he's made a decision. He's not going to compete. He'll work behind the scenes. He'll produce Pepe's tours. He'll sing when invited, but he won't break his soul trying to prove he's as good as his father. It's a survival decision, and probably the wisest thing he ever did. He marries Susana Carrillo. They have twin daughters, Flor Susana and Maria Jose Majo Aguilar. Antonio Jr. makes a revolutionary decision. His daughters will not enter music until they are adults. No child prodigies. It's a choice that goes against everything the Aguilar family represents. Pepe has Leonardo and Angela singing since they were babies, but Antonio Jr. decides his daughters will have a normal childhood. Majo will explain it in 2025. As a kid, it drove me crazy. Later, I understood my dad didn't want to repeat what he lived as a child. It helped me develop my personality. Mayo didn't even know she was an Aguilar until she was 8. One day at school, a teacher mentioned Antonio Aguilar in history class. Majo raised her hand. My grandpa has the same name. The teacher smiled, patronizing. It must be another Antonio Aguilar, sweetie. When they called Antonio Jr. to the school to clarify, the teacher almost fainted. It really was Don Antonio Aguilar's son. That night, Antonio Jr. told Majo with brutal honesty, I wanted you to be Majo before you were Aguilar. I wanted you to have your own life before the surname told you who you were supposed to be. Today, Mayo's 31. She's built a solid career, 14 singles, 12 EPs, 1 album. In 2025, she won Female Artist of the Year at Premio Lo Nuestro. But fans notice something. Mayo doesn't participate in Jaripeo Sin Fronteras, her Uncle Pepe's tour where Leonardo and Angela perform. Rumors say it's rivalry, that Pepe doesn't want Mayo competing with Angela. Nobody confirms anything. In June 2025, something extraordinary happens. Majo sells out the Teatro Metropolitan. She invites her father on stage. They sing Triste Recuerdo and Un Puño de Tierra. The connection is electric. The crowd gives them a standing ovation. The videos go viral. The comments explode. It sounds like I'm hearing Antonio Aguilar and Flor Silvestre. Why isn't this man more famous? How evil of Pepe to freeze his brother's career. That comment opens Pandora's box. Is there tension between Pepe and Antonio Jr.? Why did Antonio Jr. never reach the same level of fame as his younger brother? The answers are complicated, but first we need to talk about Flor Silvestre's most successful son, Pepe Aguilar, August 7, 1968, San Antonio, Texas. 4:12 p.m., Jose Antonio Aguilar Jimenez is born. He's born in the United States. He has American citizenship, but he will be raised in Zacatecas. He will be Mexican in everything, except paperwork. Pepe is different from the start, pure energy. At 3 years old, he's already on stage, not because he's forced, but because he demands it. He escapes dressing rooms and climbs onto the stage during performances. The audience loses it. A 3-year-old singing rancheras is irresistible. At 9, he records his first album, Pepe Aguilar con Tambora. It's a success. Pepe becomes a child prodigy. At 12, he's a full professional. But Pepe has a secret. He hates ranchera music. What he really wants is to play electric guitar, start a rock band, sing in English. He listens to the Beatles, Led Zeppelin, Pink Floyd on his Walkman when nobody's watching. At 15, he gathers the courage and tells his father, I want to make rock music, something different. Antonio looks at him like he's blasphemed. He doesn't yell, he just says, if you want to do rock, do it. But not under the name Aguilar. That name is ranchero. If you want to be a rocker, you'll have to be someone else. It's an order disguised as an option. Pepe can be a rocker, but he would have to give up the surname, the family, everything. Pepe chooses to be Aguilar. But the rage from that forced decision stays with him his whole life. It transforms into ruthless ambition, into a need to prove he can be more successful than his father. At 20, Pepe makes a strategic decision. If he's going to be trapped in ranchera music, he'll be the best. Not just as a singer, but as a producer, a businessman, an owner. He founds his own label, Equinoccio Records. He learns the entire business. At 26 in 1994, he produces Antonio Jr.'s first album, Successful, and that's where the balance of power becomes impossible to ignore. But there's something strange. Pepe, the younger brother, produces Antonio Jr., the older brother. Pepe is the one with the power. The 90s and 2000s are Pepe's golden era. He wins 4 Grammys and becomes one of the most awarded Latin artists. He marries twice. From his first marriage with Carmen Trevino, he has Jose Emiliano. From his second with Annalise Alvarez Alcalá, he has 3 children, Annalise, Leonardo, and Angela. Leonardo and Angela inherit talent explosively. And Angela has something rare and valuable. She's 15 and sings like she's lived 80 years. Her voice carries an emotional weight that shouldn't exist at her age. Pepe builds both of their careers with Swiss precision. He trains them since they're babies. They don't have a normal childhood like Majo. They live on stages, they record as children. Angela releases her first album at 9. At 15, she's nominated for a Grammy. At 21, she marries Christian Nodal in July 2024. The wedding sparks controversy because Nodal had just ended things with Casu, with whom he has a daughter. But Pepe handles the narrative like a master. Pepe also creates Yaripeo Sin Fronteras, a show that brings in millions. It's an empire, and Pepe controls every aspect of it. But there's a cost. Antonio Jr. works behind the scenes, trains horses, but has no creative power. He's an employee of his younger brother. Mayo doesn't participate at all. And then there's Emiliano, the son Pepe doesn't mention, the one missing from all the family photos. Emiliano is arrested in the United States near the border. The accusation, human trafficking. He allegedly tried to help 4 undocumented migrants cross illegally. The news explodes. Pepe doesn't give an immediate statement. When he finally speaks, he says only, "It's a private family matter. My son is facing the consequences of his decisions." That's it. Emiliano disappears from the family's public story. He serves his sentence. He gets out in 2023. He releases a single, Lamberto Quintero, a corrido. It has quality, but it gets no family promotion. He doesn't appear in Jaripeo Sin Fronteras. He's the ghost son. Here's the third little candy. There is a recording of a phone call between Antonio Aguilar and Pepe, made in March 2007, 3 months before Don Antonio died. The recording was made by Flor. She recorded conversations as memories. Pepe mentioned it in 2018. "My father reminded me before he died that control is an illusion, and that empires built on fear collapse on their own." It was the closest Pepe ever came to admitting that maybe the way he runs the family has consequences. We'll come back to that. While Pepe builds an empire, remember that Marcela and Francisco Rubiales are still carrying the trauma of separation. They're adults now, they've reunited with Flor, but wounds don't close just because time passes. Marcela was 4 when they took her mother away. 20 years later, she's 24. 2 decades lost. Birthdays without mom, Christmases without her, school achievements with nobody there to celebrate with Flor. But Marcela becomes a star. In 1977, at 23, she debuts in the telenovela La Venganza. She has undeniable presence, beautiful, with that platinum blonde hair, but there's something else. Hunger. A hunger to prove she's worth something on her own. In 1980, she launches as a singer, signs with EMI Capital. Terroncito Azucarado becomes a hit. Marcela becomes the sexy blonde of ranchera music. She records 7 albums between 1980 and 1995. She acts in films with Antonio Aguilar and Capulina. She has her own stage show. She debuts as a TV host and keeps it on top for 4 years straight. In 1983, she gives birth to her only daughter, Marcela Barbara Fuentes. She raises her as a single mother. She pours into that girl all the love she didn't receive for 20 years. She becomes hyperprotective. Her world revolves around her child. February 28, 2004, a normal Thursday. Marcela Barbara is in a car with her boyfriend. He's driving on the Mexico City-Cuernavaca highway. A violent crash. Marcela Barbara dies instantly. She's 21. Marcela Rubiales receives the news and collapses. Her daughter, her only daughter, is dead. There are no words in any language for that pain. There's a hole in the vocabulary where the word for mother without a child should be. Marcela stops singing, stops acting. She shuts herself inside. For months, she doesn't go out. Flor and Antonio temporarily move into her home to watch over her, but there's no comfort that can reach that kind of loss. Eventually, Marcela will write, "They were wonderful years. My life made sense. My little girl, my precious baby, and suddenly she was gone, and I was still breathing. How? I still don't understand." Slowly, very slowly, Marcela comes back. It takes years. By 2008, she can return to the stage without falling apart. In 2020, she attends Flor's 90th birthday. When Flor dies in November 2020, Marcela says at the funeral, "When my mother died, love inside me grew. It became enormous, and it poured toward my brothers. What an honor to be her daughter. I still can't listen to her music. I've tried and I can't. But I'm happy and proud to have been her daughter." She can't listen to her mother's music. The pain is still too much. But she's proud. And after everything 20 years stolen, the death of her daughter Marcela is still standing. Damaged but not destroyed. Francisco Rubiales, Marcela's brother, chooses a completely different path. While everyone chases spotlights, Francisco runs from them. Francisco was born in 1958 in the middle of the divorce. He's a baby when the judge grants custody to his father. He has no memories of living with Flor. When Paco dies in 1978, Francisco is 20, having only seen Flor in secret. Reuniting with Flor full-time is complicated. Francisco doesn't know how to be her son. He doesn't know how to live at El Soyate where everyone sings. He studies translation, specializes in dubbing, learns English perfectly. His most famous work, adapting The Simpsons for Mexico from season 1 through 15. It's meticulous, invisible, technical, exactly what he wants. Francisco attends family events. He loves his mother, but he never gives interviews. He keeps an absolutely low profile. When photographers catch him, he's always in the back, escaping the camera. He's the sane one in the family, the one who doesn't need fame to feel like he exists. And finally, Dalia Inez, the firstborn, the one who saw everything from the beginning. Dalia is 77 in 2025. She has lived longer than her mother. She has watched the dynasty turn into an international phenomenon, and she's at peace with it. She studied to become a teacher and translator before entering the artistic world. She traveled to Puerto Rico with Antonio and Flor and participated in Mi Aventura in Puerto Rico in 1977. She recorded 3 albums. She's best known for her show, Mi Mexico, a musical revue with traditional dances, performed at venues like the Auditorio Nacional, Teatro Blanquita, and Teatro Metropolitan. It didn't make her a megastar, but it gave her a stable, respectable career. In 2014, she does something unexpected. She publishes a book, Lecumberri, The White Side of the Black Palace. It tells the story of her husband, Roberto Romero de la Torre, arrested at 20 for murder and sent to Lecumberri. The book documents irregularities in the case. It's a hard, honest, important book. Dalia didn't write it to be a bestseller. She wrote it because the story deserved to be told. Dalia has 2 children, Virgilio and Guillermo Romero. Flor's grandchildren almost nobody knows. They didn't enter show business. They lived private lives. In 1963, when she turned 15, Antonio Aguilar organized her quinceañera at Tayahua. Dalia walked into the church on Antonio's arm, not Andres Nieto's. The photo exists. Dalia in a white dress, Antonio in a charro suit, Flor crying in the front row. Years later, Dalia would say, "I always loved him like my dad. He has all my affection. From my mom and her husband, I learned that even if life gives you fortune, you must never forget the people gave it to you." March 3rd, 1990. The impossible finally happens. Antonio and Flor marry in the church. They've been civilly married since 1959, 31 years of waiting. To marry in the Catholic Church, they needed annulments from previous marriages. The process took decades. Finally, in 1990, Flor is 59 and Antonio is 71. They received the annulments. The ceremony is held at the Tayahua Hacienda. Antonio Jr. and Pepe are the ring sponsors. Dalia and Marcela are the lazo sponsors. Francisco is there. All 5 children present, united. The composer Jorge Arturo Salinas writes Para Siempre Juntos, especially for them. Flor records it on Me Regalo Contigo in 1993. It becomes prophecy. Antonio dies in 2007. Flor lives 13 more years waiting to reunite. In 1998, Antonio says, "She had an entire career, but she chose to dedicate her life to me, to give me children. How can I repay her? With myself, with my love." It's the recognition that Flor made sacrifices Antonio never had to make. June 19, 2007. Antonio Aguilar dies at 88 from respiratory complications. All of Mexico mourns. Vicente Fernandez cries on television, "We lost the greatest." The funeral is held at El Soyate. Thousands travel to the ranch. Flor, 76, stands by the coffin, physically supported by Pepe and Antonio Jr. because her legs can't hold her. Antonio is buried high on the San Cayetano Hill. Flor decides that when she dies, she will be buried there too, forever together. Flor survives 13 years. In 2010, she releases Soledad, dedicated to Antonio. Each song is a love letter to a dead man. In 2015, she attends the premiere of her documentary. In 2016, she records with Antonio Jr., Para Morir Iguales. In 2018, she appears on Angela's project singing Cielo Rojo, August 16, 2020. Flor turns 90. Celebration at El Soyate. Everyone is present except Dalia. Pepe documents it on YouTube. Cake, mariachi, Flor blowing out candles. She looks fragile but happy. It's the last footage of Flor with her family. But there's something Flor doesn't tell anyone that day. Something only Pepe will discover 3 months later when he sorts through her personal papers. A handwritten letter addressed to each of her 5 children, dated August 15, 2020, one day before her birthday. We'll come back to those letters. November 25, 2020, Wednesday, 11:30 a.m. Flor Silvestre dies in her room at El Soyate. She's 90 years and 3 months old. The official cause is complications from typhoid fever. But the reality is simpler. Her body was tired. She had watched Antonio die 13 years earlier. She was ready to reunite with him. Pepe is the one who finds her. He enters the room to bring her breakfast. Flor is in bed, in a peaceful sleeping position. Pepe knows immediately. He touches her hand. It's cold. He sits on the bed beside her and cries for 20 minutes before calling his siblings. Antonio Jr. arrives first. He enters the room, sees his mother, and just kneels beside the bed. He doesn't cry. He only takes Flor's hand and holds it. Pepe and Antonio Jr. stay there, the 2 sons of Antonio Aguilar and Flor Silvestre, beside their mother's body, saying nothing to each other for almost an hour. Marcela arrives from Saltillo. When she sees her mother, she screams. It's a visceral scream, pure pain. She throws herself over the body and has to be pulled away physically by her brothers. No, it can't be. Marcela already lost her daughter. Now she loses her mother. It's too much pain for one body. Francisco arrives from Mexico City. He enters in absolute silence, approaches his mother, touches her forehead, and says something nobody expected. Thank you, Mom, for never giving up on us, for fighting in court, for the secret meetings, for choosing to be our mother even when the world forbade it. It's the first time in decades Francisco speaks about those years. Dalia can't travel immediately. She's 72 and has health issues. She arrives the next day, but when she receives the call, she says something Pepe will remember forever. Mom lived 90 years building bridges between her children. Don't let those bridges fall now that she's gone. The news becomes public at 3 p.m. Mexico stops. Flor Silvestre has died. It trends worldwide. Vicente Fernandez records a video in tears. Mexico lost one of its purest voices today. Rest in peace, Queen. Angela posts the video of Cielo Rojo. Grandma, thank you for teaching me that music isn't inherited, it's earned. That night, the 5 children gather in the living room at El Soyate. They need to make decisions about the funeral. But before they talk logistics, Pepe pulls something out of his briefcase. 5 envelopes. Each one has a name written in Flor Silvestre's trembling but readable handwriting. I found them in Mom's nightstand this morning, Pepe says, voice breaking. They're dated August 15th, one day before her 90th birthday. I think she knew she didn't have much time. Each sibling receives an envelope. There's a silent agreement, no words needed. They'll read them alone. This is their mother's final message. Sacred, personal. The goodbye she prepared while she still could write. Later, each of them will share fragments of their letters in interviews or on social media in their own time. But that night, November 25th, 2020, each one goes to their room, reads the last words their mother wrote specifically for them, and cries alone in the dark. Dalia's letter, the firstborn, is 3 pages, the handwriting growing shakier and shakier. It says in part, "You were my first daughter when I was barely an 18-year-old girl myself. I didn't know how to be a mother. I didn't have a manual. I didn't have a perfect example to follow. I learned with you, making terrible mistakes along the way. Forgive me for all the absences I couldn't avoid. Forgive me for the absences I could have avoided, but chose anyway. Forgive me for not giving you the stable childhood you deserved. But never, never in your life doubt that you were loved from the first second I held you in my arms in that Argentine hospital. You are proof that I survived my first marriage, and I survived because I had you." Francisco's letter, 2 pages. "You were born literally in the worst moment of my life, in the middle of the most terrible, most public, most painful divorce. You could have been a constant reminder of that pain, but you weren't. You were light in absolute darkness. You were the reason I got up every morning when I wanted to stay in bed crying. When Paco took you from me, when the judge forbade me to see you, I broke inside in ways I can't even explain. But I stayed standing because I had blind faith that one day you would return to me. And you did. And you forgave me things I haven't forgiven myself. That's more than I deserved. You are the quiet son, the invisible one, but you are also the wisest. You chose a life outside the spotlight, and that makes you the freest of all. Marcella's letter is the longest. 4 full pages in blue ink, smudged in places because Flor cried while writing. It includes this devastating paragraph. Losing you for 20 years was literally dying while alive. Watching you grow from a distance, from street corners, hiding behind dark glasses so nobody would recognize me. It was the most refined torture the universe could invent for me. When I finally got you back, when I could finally hug you without hiding, you were already an adult woman. You were no longer my little baby. I missed your first steps, your first words, your first communion, your 15th birthday. There is no way to recover those years. None, but we built something new from the ruins. And when you lost your only daughter, my Marcella Barbara, my adored granddaughter, I knew in that moment you finally understood my pain in a way nobody else could. The pain of a mother who loses her daughter has no name in any human language, but you and I survived that impossible pain. That makes us eternal warriors. Antonio Jr.'s letter says, eldest son of my third marriage, the only one that worked. You carried the heaviest name in Mexican music. I watched you suffer your whole life trying to be your father. I watched you disappear trying to find yourself. I watched you return wiser, but also more wounded. I want you to know something your father made me swear I would tell you. 3 months before he died, your father confessed that his greatest regret in his entire life was not letting you be yourself. So here is his message through me. You don't have to be Antonio Aguilar to have value. You're already enough, more than enough, being exactly who you are. Pepe's letter is the shortest, just 1 page, but it's also the most direct, with no filter. My youngest son, my prodigy who sang at 3, my emperor who built a kingdom bigger than his father's. You built an empire I'm proud of, but listen to me carefully. Never forget that real empires need love, not just power and money. Your brothers need you more than you think. Your children need you present, not only successful. Don't let professional success cost you your family. Your father told me something months before he died that I never forgot. Pepe will be more successful than I ever was. He will do bigger things, but I beg that he will be happier than I was. Be happy, my son. Money doesn't hug you on lonely nights. Those letters aren't made public until years later, when each sibling decides, in their own time, to share fragments in interviews or online. But that night, November 25th, 2020, each of them reads their letter in absolute privacy and cries alone, processing the last message their mother left behind. The funeral takes place on November 26th. The ranch fills with hundreds of people, mariachis, flowers, tears, the coffin covered in white flowers. Flor dressed in a China poblana outfit. The 5 children standing beside the coffin the entire ceremony. Father Miguel leads the mass and says something that sticks. Flor Silvestre was not a saint. She was a woman, a complicated woman who made mistakes. But she was a woman who loved fiercely. And that imperfect but real love is what gathers us here today. They lift the coffin. 6 men, Antonio Jr., Pepe, Leonardo, 2 of Dalia's sons, and a nephew. They climb San Cayetano Hill. It's her steep life, turned into a literal path. The November sun is brutal. At the top, next to Antonio Aguilar's grave, there's the space Flor prepared back in 2007. The headstone reads, Antonio Aguilar y Flor Silvestre, para siempre juntos. May 1919, 2007, and 1930, 2020. They lower the coffin. Father Miguel says the final prayers. The mariachis play Cielo Rojo, instrumental, and then something unplanned happens. Pepe steps to the microphone and starts singing a cappella Cielo Rojo. His voice breaks on the first line. but he keeps going. Antonio Jr. joins him, then Angela, then Leonardo, then Mayo. The Aguilars start singing together. It's not perfect. Voices crack, tears fall, but it's real. It's family. It's goodbye. When they finish, the silence is absolute. 300 people. Nobody makes a sound, only the wind of Zacatecas. Flor is buried. The tomb is sealed. People descend slowly. The 5 siblings stay until the end. And when everyone is gone, Dahlia says, "We were 5 kids, 3 different fathers, 3 broken marriages, 20 years of separation, and Mom kept us united. How are we supposed to do this without her?" Nobody answers, because nobody knows. November 2021, the first anniversary. The children reunite at El Soyate. More private this time, just family. They climb San Cayetano Hill together, a mass beside the grave. Afterward, they sit in a circle. Pepe suggests each one share a private memory of their mother. Dahlia: "When I was 8, Mom sat me on her lap while she was singing in the studio. She told me, 'Feel how my chest vibrates. That's how you sing. From here, not from your throat.' That's why I became a singer." Francisco: "When Paco died and I could live with Mom, I was 20. One night I found her crying. She told me, 'I lost 20 years with you. I'll never know what kind of boy you were.' That's when I understood she suffered more than we did." Marcela: "When my daughter died, Mom came to live with me for 3 months. She told me, 'I know what it is to lose a daughter. I lost Marcela when she was 4. I didn't see her for 20 years. Every day without her was death. But I survived. You will survive too." Antonio Jr.: "After Dad died, Mom lived 13 years. I visited her every week. I asked her, 'What is it like to live without him?' She answered, 'I don't live without him. I live waiting for him. Every day that passes is one less day until I see him again.'" Pepe reveals, 3 days before she died, Mom called me. She said, "Pepe, you built something big, but don't confuse the empire with the family. The empire is business. Family is life. If you have to choose, choose life." I didn't fully understand it. Now I think I do. Marcella says what everyone is thinking. Mom told us in those letters not to let the bridges fall. Are we doing that, or are we letting success, money, and ego separate us? It's a direct question. Everyone knows what she means. Antonio Jr. breaks the silence. "I work for you, Pepe. That's fine. But sometimes I feel like I'm an employee, not your brother." "And Majo, why isn't she in Jarapeo?" Pepe answers with brutal honesty, "Because Angela is my priority. She's my daughter. And yes, maybe I've been unfair. Maybe I've put business before family. Dad told me, Mom wrote it to me, and I still haven't changed. That hurts me, brother." It's the first time in years Pepe admits it out loud. Marcela steps in. "We've all failed. I pulled away after my daughter died. Francisco never talks. Dahlia lives in her own world. Antonio, you disappeared twice. Pepe, you control everything, but you don't let anyone close. We're a dysfunctional family, but we're family." Francisco says, "Mom was imperfect too. She had us with different fathers. She lost custody. She chose her career over us many times. And we loved her anyway. Why? Because she tried. Because she never gave up." Dahlia closes it. "Mom died a year ago. Can we really drift farther apart? Or can we try to be the family she wanted? We won't be perfect, but we can try." It becomes a silent pact. Something shifts in that moment. In the months that follow, small changes appear. Pepe invites Antonio Jr. to make more decisions in Jarapeo. In March 2022, Majo appears as a guest on 2 dates. It's a beginning. Emiliano is still complicated. But in December 2022, a Christmas photo appears posted by Pepe. The first in 5 years. Francisco starts attending more events. In June 2023, he sings in a private gathering only Cielo Rojo. His voice is beautiful. Nobody knew Francisco could sing like that. Dahlia records new material in 2023, her first album in 15 years. Pepe produces it. It's a tribute to Flor. It includes duets with all her siblings. It's healing. They're not dramatic changes. Decades of wounds don't heal in a year. But there are attempts. And maybe that's all Flor ever wanted. The 3 candies I promised. First candy, Flor's letter to Dahlia. In 2015, Dahlia mentioned it, written in 1962. Dahlia read a fragment. My daughter, when you're older, you will understand that love cannot exist where there is violence. Your father loved me in his own way, but that way included fists when he lost at gambling. I left because I wanted to live, and I wanted you to live without seeing that. It was the first time Flor admitted Andres Nieto's violence. Second Candy, the witness to the secret meetings, Eva Samano de Lopez Mateos, First Lady from 1958 to 1964. Eva used her influence to help facilitate meetings between Flor and her children, coordinating with schools. In 1968, she helped Flor recover shared custody. This appeared in a biography of Eva in 2005. Flor confirmed it. Doña Eva saved me. Without her, maybe I never would have recovered my children. Third Candy, the conversation between Antonio Aguilar and his son. March 2007, 3 months before he died. Flor recorded the call. Antonio Jr. revealed it in 2016. Don Antonio told him, "Son, you carried my name and my face. That was unfair. I should have let you be yourself. I come from a generation where men didn't know how to be better. We only knew how to be strong. And sometimes being strong means crushing your children without meaning to. Forgive me." It was the first time his father acknowledged the weight. There is also a recording between Don Antonio and Pepe. According to Pepe in 2018, control is an illusion. Empires built on fear collapse on their own. You built something big. Don't destroy it by controlling so much that you forget why you built it. Don Antonio saw the tensions with Antonio Jr. He saw Mayo being excluded. He saw the broken relationship with Emiliano. He was warning that excessive control has consequences. If Pepe listened, there's no proof of complete change, at least not until after Flor's death. Today in 2025, all 5 children are alive. Dalia, 77, Francisco, 77, Marcela, 70, Antonio Jr., 64, Pepe, 57. Between the 5 of them, there are 14 grandchildren of Flor Silvestre. The most famous, Mayo, 31, Leonardo, 22, Angela, 21. The least known, Dahlia's sons, Annalise, an influencer, not a singer, Emiliano, 34, rebuilding a career far from the surname, Flor Susana, 31, living outside the spotlight. The Aguilar dynasty remains the most powerful in Mexico. But before it was a dynasty, it was 5 kids with 3 different fathers, 3 broken marriages, a judge who separated siblings, 20 years of secret meetings, accusations of violence never fully resolved, and a mother constantly choosing between her career and her children. She chose both, and she paid the price in tears, courtrooms, absences, guilt. But she did it. Flor Silvestre left 200 records, 90 films, 70 years of career. She left 5 children who adored her in complicated ways. She left 14 grandchildren. And she left a lesson that sums up her life. You can build an empire. You can be a queen, but you can't build it alone. You need an Antonio Aguilar willing to adopt your children as his own. You need an Eva Samano willing to use her power to reunite you with them. You need children willing to forgive absences. You need to understand perfection doesn't exist, but imperfect love still counts. And you need to remember that legacies aren't measured in records sold, but in how many generations keep singing your name after you're gone. Flor Silvestre's real legacy is her children, not the awards, not the movies. Them with careers that soared and careers that stalled, with private tragedies and public triumphs, with famous names and quiet lives, proof that you can be the queen of Mexican song and an imperfect mother at the same time, and that real love survives even the worst courts, betrayals, and mistakes. Flor wasn't a perfect mother. She was a complicated mother, sometimes absent, sometimes powerless when they took her children. A mother who rebuilt what was broken, a mother who tried, and maybe that's enough. Her 5 children carry scars, but they're still standing. That's the real dynasty, not the one that sings in stadiums, the one that survives. Which one of the 5 do you relate to most? Dahlia, who watched everything from the beginning. Francisco, who chose invisibility. Marcela, who lost her daughter but kept breathing. Antonio Jr., one who carried a name that was too big. Or Pepe, who built an empire but maybe lost some humanity along the way. Tell me in the comments, And if this video moves something inside you, something that hurts but also heals because it makes you understand that complicated families are still families, give me a like. And if you want to understand how fame can turn a family into a battlefield, watch this video next, right here. Maria Felix, the truth about the son she wanted to erase from her life. There you'll discover the most painful secret of the most powerful woman in Mexican cinema, and why even the absolute queen carried a wound that never closed.